Thank you. You will now be placed into conference. To mute your line, press *6. To unmute, press #6.
Welcome to the DC Science 2017 Administration Training. My name is Anna Bowles. I am the project manager for the DC Science team. With me today, I have Joy Heitland, our program manager, as well as Margaret Allen, a coordinator who will be assisting us with calls as they come in. We also have Kathy Lynett from the State Department on the line here today too, and she'll be assisting as we go through the training with any questions. So on the agenda today for DC Science 2017, we're going to go through the accommodations and accessibility features. We've got some overviews and then information for students with disabilities and English learners, as well as administrative considerations. We're going to go through DC Science and PearsonAccessnext, as well as the personal needs profile and the test administration. We will also cover accommodated paper forms, TestNav, important dates, and support lines. So jumping right in, we just have a slide here for the new features for 2017. Accessibility features include audio, color contrast, and answer masking, all of which were used last year, but we thought we should specifically call them out. Accommodated paper forms, we will be having 4 different types: English, Spanish, large print, and Braille. They all must be transcribed into TestNav prior to the close of the testing window. Preparing sessions, all test sessions must go through a new step called Prepare Session in PearsonAccessnext. This allows the test to get assigned to students prior to starting the test. So if you find any students who were assigned the wrong test, they can easily be removed prior to starting. Accommodations and accessibility features. Please review the accommodations and accessibility features available for students with disabilities and English learners on the DC Science 2017 assessment. Compare the PARCC accommodations and accessibility features to DC Science accommodations and accessibility features, and note where the differences may impact the test administration, planning, and scheduling. Please overview the personal needs profile for DC Science to ensure that all students were loaded correctly. DC Science Assessment Accessibility System. In the purple here, we've got accessibility features available to all students. These are features that all students can access at any time with no documentation required. The next bubble in blue is accessibility features for administrative considerations. And these are additional features that are available to any student and must be identified on the student's PNP. Jumping into the third bubble, for accommodations for ELL and IEP 504 students. Certain accommodations are available to only students with disabilities or with IEPs or 504 plans. Students with disabilities who have IEPs or 504 plans. Other accommodations are available for English learners, and accommodations must be documented in the IEP, 504, or ELL plan, and also be in the student's PNP where applicable. Examples of each type of feature. In the purple, we've got the accessibility features available to all students. This includes the highlighter, answer eliminator, the line reader, answer masking, color contrast, notepad, and the audio form. Accessibility features for administrative considerations. We've got frequent breaks, small group testing, preferential seating. And then for accommodations for the IEP or 504 plans, those include human scribe, paper-based tests, and extended time. Accommodations for ELL students include word-to-word dictionary, extended time, and human scribe. Accommodations and accessibility features for students with disabilities. Some PARCC accommodations will not be available for use on DC Science. For a student who needs one or more of these accommodations, please ensure that the student receives the appropriate equivalent accommodation. If you're unsure of what that equivalent would be, please contact OSSI for assistance in deciding what would be the best accommodation. The IEP does not need to be amended if the student's needs have not changed since PARCC. The students were loaded for grades 5 and 8 from the PARCC administration, so as long as nothing's changed since then, your students should be good to go. Some accommodations are not available in the DC Science Assessment, and if you use the Testing Accommodations Guide, Part 1, they will help you identify these accommodations. What if a student's IEP team decides he or she needs an accommodation that is not listed in SED? The IEP team should document it on the IEP in the Unique Accommodations box. Also, the LEA must submit a Unique Accommodations request to OSSI for the approval via the OSSI support tool. DCPS schools need to submit their request to the DCPS central office. Science accommodations in the PNP. This is just a snapshot of the PNP for DC Science within PearsonAccessnext. I've highlighted the places for the accommodations. And please note that the PNP does not capture all accommodations that a student may receive. However, the student's IEP or 504 plan must document all accommodations assigned to the student. And then going into accommodations for ELs. ELs who need assistance with directions, the test administrator is permitted to do 3 things. They can read the instructions out loud in English, repeat the instructions in English, or clarify the instructions in the student's native language. Additional information is that some of the EL accommodations that were provided on PARCC are available for DC Science. There are, however, some that are not. Please reference the Testing Accommodations Guide, Part 2, English Learners, for more information. And here's a snapshot of the PNP information, and I've highlighted in red here the piece specifically for accommodations for English learners. Again, please note that the PNP does not capture all accommodations that an EL may receive. However, the student's EL plan should document all accommodations assigned to the student, and all accommodations should be made available during testing. Jumping into administrative considerations. When preparing to administer DC Science, there are some steps here we've listed out for you. Step 1, verify the student registrations are in PearsonAccessnext. Step 2, enter the student PNP information in PearsonAccessnext if it's not already there. Step 3, order paper forms if needed. Step 4, determine the testing schedule. You could administer Part 1 and Part 2 in the same day, or you can do it on separate days. Step 5, create a test schedule and submit it to OSSI in the School Test Security Plan tool. Those school plans are due 15 days prior to the start of testing. Step 6 is to set up the test sessions in PearsonAccessnext. You've got main sessions, read aloud sessions, transcribe sessions, and audio sessions. Audio sessions will need to have a separate session created to assign the audio forms, even if they are testing in the same room as a student in the main session. Considerations for planning and scheduling. Secure test materials include tickets, seal codes, and test books. Separate test environments are needed for paper-based testing and computer-based testing. They may not test in the same room. However, you can have a student who tests an audio test in the same room as someone testing a main form. The audio form is considered an accessibility feature for DC Science 2017, and headphones are required to take this test. Accommodated paper forms. This is any accommodation that asks the student to read or write on paper. We do have accommodated paper forms available in English, Spanish, large print, and Braille. Human readers, human scribes, and human signers. Many more accommodations are provided by human readers, scribes, and signers. And external devices. Some built-in tools will require external devices for accommodation administration. Considerations for test administration. Targeted training for individual and small group test administrators. Human readers and human signers. DC Science has minimal test directions. Please stick closely to the text written either on the screen or in the book. Read data tables and graphics literally, as well as refrain from inferences. Human scribes and transcription, type exactly what the student states or writes. Constructed response items are not scored for accuracy of grammar, but are scored for content of response. So if a student misspells a word, please type it misspelled. DC Science in PearsonAccessnext. DC Science does not assign forms or accessibility features from the information gathered in the PNP. DC Science does not utilize text-to-speech, American Sign Language, or unit testing. And DC Science does not require the return of paper test books. DC Science will, however, use audio forms, have specific test session types, assign forms to students in that session, and will require transcription of paper tests into TestNav. DC Science will also use paper Spanish forms. So as mentioned earlier, text-to-speech is available for PARCC. However, this is not an available accommodation for DC Science. Audio and text-to-speech are not the same. Audio is a pre-recorded audio file that is played for the student. So, and we'll go over the audio forms here after a little while. DC Science Personal Needs Profile. And these are just going to highlight some changes. The Personal Needs Profile is part of the student registration process for DC Science. The PNP is the primary source of documentation of a student's testing conditions, including accommodations. Unlike PARCC, the DC Science PNP does not generate forms or assign student materials. Forms are assigned by placing students in test sessions. The following session types are available in PearsonAccessnext: main sessions, read aloud sessions, transcribed sessions, and audio sessions. And jumping into the Personal Needs Profile section, the information captured for the PNP is found under the Manage Student Test tab. The PNP officially starts with a list of questions about accessibility features and accommodations on this page, and it's called Administration Consideration. And here's a larger snapshot of the PNP information for DC Science. I was able to get it all in one screenshot here. There are two methods for creating a personal needs profile for students. If you have many students that you need to populate, you can use the PNP file layout import. This is where the LEAs populate an Excel template provided by Pearson for a mass upload. Or if you don't have very many students, You can just do that in the user interface. And that's where the LEA staff members or school fills out the PNP for individual students using PearsonAccessnext. Creating and editing PNPs is the same process for DC Science as it was for PARCC. And there are training modules for completing the SR-PNP file at that location there below, and the link is in the slide deck. Jumping into the DC Science Test Administration. When logging in, we log in exactly as you would for PARCC, and we are under the same instance. After selecting District of Columbia, you will be directed to the login screen. Please note that the PARCC references, specifically the contact us information and related links on this page, are not for DC Science users. DC Science specific information will be found after logging in with your user ID and password. Once you click Sign In, you'll be taken into PearsonAccessnext, and you will want to select the DC Science Spring 2017 administration. You will also be able to see your school or district listed to the right side of the administration. And once you log in and jump onto the DC Science Spring 2017 page, you will see all of our reminders and notes for the administration. On this page is where we have our contact us information for our customer support center, as well as the email address, and many other links to OSSE's information and Pearson's information regarding anything you would need for this administration. The majority of DC Science students have already been loaded to PearsonAccessnext. OSSE is registering students in grades 5 and 8, and LEAs are responsible for registering all students enrolled in a high school biology course. For step-by-step instructions for creating and updating a student's personal needs profile, please see OSSE's PARCC resources or refer to the training modules for completing the SR-PNP file at the link listed there. And again, the link is in the slide deck. And these are just some screenshots of the student registration file import, kind of just a how-to quick section here. Data such as information about organizations, users, and students can be entered into the system directly and read from the screen. However, for large amounts of data, it is often easier to enter or retrieve it by uploading or downloading a file. To import or export a file, you would go to Setup, Import Export Data, open the task list, and select Import Export Data and click Start. And that is your first screenshot in the upper left-hand corner. Once you click Start, you will see the information in the bottom left-hand corner picture, and you would select Student Registration Import. This will take you to the third and final screenshot on the right-hand side of the page, where you can choose your file layout type, either fixed or CSV. A fixed is another name for a text file. And then you will choose your source file and click Process. So how to manually add a student into PearsonAccessnext? It requires multiple steps. You would go to Setup and Students, and then check the boxes next to Create, Edit Students, and Registration. That will select all of the 4 boxes below it, including Enroll Students, Register Students, Manage Student Tests, and Manage Classes. And click Start. And then this takes you into the page where you just start going through the tabs and creating the students. Any box that has a red asterisk next to it is a required field. And if you hit Create without filling one of those out, it will make the box red and it will not save the information. So just make sure, well, if you forget one, the system will let you know, and just make sure you get those all filled in. The next tab you will want to go to is Enroll Students. This is the process of creating the new student automatically enrolled the student. It allows editing of the student's current assigned school. Since students may be enrolled at multiple organizations within PearsonAccessnext, it is not necessary to remove enrollments. However, if you choose to remove an enrollment, you may remove the enrollment only if there's no data associated with the enrollment record. For example, test attempts or assigned tests, etc. If you wish to change this assignment or add a new school, click on the organization drop-down menu and select the school. Notice you can now checkmark the new school and uncheck the old, or if you wish to have the student associated with both schools, check both boxes and press Save. And you will receive a confirmation message at the top of the page once you click Save. And then jumping into the Register Students tab. To register your students, be prepared with the student's demographic information, including accommodations. Check the Register checkbox at the top that is circled in red. This action will open the registration page for the student. Fill in the student's demographic information. So if a student is an English language learner or student with disabilities, be sure to complete the program selection. Please note again that accommodations information entered into PearsonAccessnext or provided via the SR-PNP file will not have any impact on the student form assignment for DC Science. It is important that if a student has an IEP, 504, or EL plan, that you indicate that information both on the Register Student and Manage Student Test page. And the next slide has an additional screenshot of the rest of the student registration page. So again, once you fill out all of the required information and select Save, it will give you another message that it is completed. If you receive a critical warning that pops up on the page, it will change colors. It will be orange. You can go back and edit this information as needed. However, not all fields are required to continue. And some of them may also be hidden. There are pieces within here that are specific to PARCC that we have hidden for DC Science. So if those aren't populated and you don't see any red box or orange boxes, you can go ahead and move forward. Having a critical warning message on a student does not deter them from continuing to be registered and to be able to test. The Manage Student Test tab manages the detail for which test will be administered to the student. Click on the student field in order to add your student. You will only be able to select students that have been registered. Then continue to fill out the required fields such as the test, the organization, and the test format. Once you've filled out this page again, you will go down to the bottom, and this is the rest of the Manage Student Test page. And you will select Save. For each test assigned, you will notice that the personal needs profile will display here. The fields are listed in sections and follow the layout on the PNP file. Student testing features will not be assigned based on indications made in the PNP. Human reader accommodation, or read aloud, and audio forms will need to be assigned manually if they are needed. Once you have indicated all the student demographic information, please select Create. And again, if you receive critical warning text, it will turn orange, and just update those as needed. And your student is now registered and assigned for the DC Science Administration. Jumping into creating test sessions. There are 4 different sessions available. There's Main, Read Aloud, Audio, and Transcribe. And then session management includes moving students, checking out the status, resuming tests, looking at field codes, setting the section start, and marking complete or voiding tests. In order to go out and create a session, you need to start with testing and sessions, and then from the task drop-down menu, you will select Create Edit Sessions and click Start. And again, you're just going to fill out all the required information that has the red asterisk. So you'll enter the session name, your organization, and then the test and form section. So select the test assigned and choose the appropriate test from the drop-down menu. Form group type should be set to main, audio, transcribe, or read aloud, depending on the group of students that the session is being created for. If pre-caching, select the pre-caching computer from the drop-down menu. And you can utilize the Proctor caching guidelines for more information on that. Then enter the scheduled start date. Lab location is not a required field, but it is recommended to complete both. And please note that a test session will not be started until you click Start on the session's detail screen, regardless of the scheduled start date and time. And again, before you can even get to the Start button, you must prepare the session. So finally, you'll get down to the bottom and you will have the capability to add your students. So you can find them by name or ID in whatever district or school you're listed. So just start typing either the ID of the students or their last name, first name, and then once you have all your students in there, select Create. And this is just a blown-up screenshot of the session types. So if you need a read aloud session, you are going to check the teeny tiny little box that says Proctor Reads Aloud. This gives you the only form group type available, which is Read Aloud. If you need any other test session type, you will not check that box. And then your sessions are available are audio, main, and transcribe. Transcribe sessions are for all of those students who are testing paper. You will need to put them in transcribe sessions so that you can copy over their answers from the paper books into the online system. Test session management. To view students in sessions within your organization, go to Testing, Sessions, and in the search drop-down, you can choose to see all sessions, or you can use the filters to locate a specific session on the left-hand side of the screen. You can select one or all sessions to view, and after you've made your selections, go to the Go to Students and Sessions link at the top of the page, and that is highlighted in red up at the top at the blue bar. And here is just a screenshot of how to move students between sessions. Please remember that you cannot move students from sessions to new sessions if they are not alike. So they have to be the same type of session. The Move Students Between Sessions task will bring up a screen with multiple options. You can add sessions to the Sessions box or use the Create button to create a new session in which to move students. Please note that you can only move students to other sessions that are set up for the same grade level test. It is also important to note that you can only move students to like sessions. For example, audio to audio. You are not able to move a student in an audio session to a transcribed session. The student will need to be removed and then added to a new session. And you must check the boxes for the session with which the students are being moved to before you click Move. So if I want to move Sandy Smith to Demo 2, I will select that box in Demo 2 and click Move. And then her check mark from Biology Main 1 will be removed. And removing and adding students from sessions. Students are often added at the time of session creation or via the file import. However, there may be times that a student needs to be added to a test session at a later time. To do this, locate the test session that the student is currently in and select the task Add or Remove Students in Session. To add a student, you can begin typing the name of the student to locate them. This task will show a list of students already in the session you selected. To remove a student, check the box next to their name. And this one always trips me up. I think I've finally gotten it down. So this one, it would be, once you click Save, Andy Test will be removed because the checkbox next to her name is removed. A Hoft will remain there because the checkbox is there. So if you need a student, keep the box checked. If you don't, uncheck the box. Jumping into seal codes and testing tickets. It's a little bit different look from last year, same type of pieces of information. Seal codes are needed for students to get to Part 2 of the test. Seal codes are generated at the session level, meaning that all students in that session will use the same seal code. Student testing tickets can be downloaded in various formats, with one ticket per student being provided. Proctor testing tickets are only needed for read aloud sessions to allow the proctor to log in and view the test as the student is. It is very important to note that we do not want any of the proctor testing tickets to get into students' hands. If they are accidentally mixed up, those proctor testing tickets do not keep any of the information. They're specifically for the proctor, and no log files will be created for those tickets. So if a student happens to accidentally get one, they're probably going to have to retake the test because there's no way of Pearson to dig up those log files, as there are none. Online testing management. And this is an old screenshot. It does look a little bit different. Colors are the same though, so I kept the screenshot in. This session was created specifically to show all of the different colors available and statuses for student tests. Once testing has begun, scrolling to the bottom of the Students in Session screen will allow you to view the individual student statuses. You can then click on the link located under the Student Test Status column. And student test statuses are ready, where the student is ready to test but have not logged in yet. Active, where the student is actively testing. Exited just means the student's exited TestNav. And if the student has not completed testing, they will need to be resumed before they can go back and log into TestNav. Resumed means that a student has been resumed for testing and can now log in. And completed means that the student has completed the test or submitted the test. Online testing management. If a student exits the test before completion and needs to log back into TestNav, the student will first need to be resumed in PearsonAccessnext. There are two ways to resume students. You can resume a student individually by clicking on the drop-down arrow next to exited and active status students, and then you'll just select Resume Student Tests in the Select Task menu. You can also add, remove, and move selected students discussed in upcoming slides. Another way to do so would be to utilize the task bar and check the Resume Student Test. You would use this for doing multiple students. So if you've got a whole class that exited for a 10-minute break and need to come back in, you will utilize the Resume Student Test button. And set section start. If a student will be taking Part 2 before Part 1, set section start will need to be used to start a student in the correct place. Once the student is completed or has completed Part 2, the student will need to be moved back to Part 1 using set section start again. Select the student from within the test session, go to Tasks, and select Set Section Start Resume. Select the student and desired section and then click Save. Please note that the student will still need to be resumed before they can log into testing. Marking a student test complete. Selecting individual students on the Students in Session screen and choosing the task Mark Student Test Complete will bring up a new screen. On this screen, you must check the box next to the student that you chose before. Note that the reason field must be completed in order to mark a student test complete. And I've added a couple reason codes down at the bottom from the state. These would be for students who don't log themselves off after completing a test or are unable to complete the test. Here's a slide on the not tested reason codes. There are 4 of them this year. There's absent, not tested reason 1, not tested reason 2, and not tested reason 3. To request the voiding of a test, please contact OSSI via the OST or the OSSI assessment hotline to get that taken care of. OSSI is the only available option to void a test. Accommodated paper forms. This is primarily similar to online. A few little differences. DC Science is a 2-part test. There is a paper script for test administrators, just as there is for online. And again, it is timed, just like online, where you have 60 minutes per part. There are stop signs between parts for paper. Some of them are full page, and some of them are just in the lower right-hand corner. They can be tested across 1 or 2 days, and they can be tested out of order as in the online form. Accommodated paper forms, how to submit an order. Wave 1, requests must be submitted by Wednesday, March 29th, and those will be delivered April 12th through the 14th. Wave 2 must be submitted by April 10th, and those will be delivered April 27th through May 1st. The books included in Wave 1 are large print and English paper forms. The forms included in Wave 2 are English, large print, and Spanish. So if you have a Spanish student needing to take a test, you will need to wait until at least May 2nd in order to test them, as there's no guarantee that we can get you the books on or before May 1st. Please submit all orders to OSSI using the order request form, and the link is in this slide deck as well as on our homepage. Accommodated paper forms and transcribing them into TestNav. Student responses from the paper test book must be transcribed into TestNav. The test administrator that administered the test will use PearsonAccessnext and TestNav to complete this task. Steps to complete this process will be outlined later in the presentation. And just a side note is that transcription should be completed as soon as possible and absolutely needs to be completed by the end of the testing window. So come June 9th, you must have all of these transcriptions completed, because come June 10th, you will not be able to add any information in there. Test book security. Accommodated paper test books are secure material and must be kept secure before, during, and after testing. When the students are testing, when the students are not testing, the test booklets must be collected. Test booklets will not be returned to Pearson, as is done with PARCC. Instead, these books will need to be securely shredded, following the state policy for secure shredding. Jumping into TestNav. For seal codes, paper will have a stop sign as it's not sealed. Sections for paper are identical to online, and seal codes will be needed to transcribe the paper forms. So you have part 1 with questions 1 through 13, then you'll come to a seal code, And then you'll have part 2, again, with questions 1 through 13. The Start Section button will not turn blue until the student enters the CO code. Accessibility features, color contrast and answer masking can be found under the little person icon in the upper right-hand corner of TestNav. They can also find the magnifier tool and line reader mask out in the same drop-down. And this is a snapshot of the audio player that will appear at the top of the screen. The player includes controls that you can use as the item is being read aloud. These controls include play or pause, time elapsed, progress bar, length of clip, and the volume. An additional audio player displays for items that appear on a split screen with stimulus material on the left side of the screen and the item on the right side of the screen. For items, the stimulus and the item have separate audio tracks and separate audio players. Select play on the audio player that is positioned above the stimulus, and then when you're ready to listen to the item track, you must select play on the audio player that is positioned above the item. If you want to replay the stimulus material, you must select the audio player above the stimulus. Jumping out to important dates. This is just a big old table of all the dates that you need to know for DC Science this year. Registrations uploaded by OSSI occurred March 22nd through the 24th. High school registrations need to be uploaded by April 14th. Scripts released online are coming out tomorrow. And the deadline to order accommodated materials for the first shipment is coming out on Wednesday. So please get your orders in for the first shipment by Wednesday. Deadline to order accommodated materials for the second shipment that includes Spanish needs to be completed by April 10th. And then we just have the LEAs need to complete the PNP for all students by April 14th. Proctor caching begins on April 17th. And the DC Science Administration window opens from April 24th to June 9th. DC Science support. This is just a few of the pieces of support information we have out on PearsonAccessnext under the Support and Documentation tab. They include the PearsonAccessnext User's Guide, there's a TestNav 8 User's Guide, system requirements for just about everything, proctor cache requirements, everything you're used to for PARCC you'll see out in the support page. And then we jump into support like the Pearson customer service support. So you can contact Pearson DC Science support for assistance with the following: navigating PearsonAccessnext, managing student registration, data, setting up test sessions, accessing resources, setting up proctor caching. And you can get a hold of us via our toll-free number from 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that's Eastern Time. And then you could also use our email that will go to the support line. And then if you need to contact your district or state, this is what you would contact them about. It would be regarding the testing schedule, testing unique accommodations, unusual circumstances on the testing day, violations of test security, test voids, unsubmitting tests, school emergencies that affect testing, questions about general testing policies, and state communications. And then I've also listed the OSSI contact information below there with the OST and the OSSI assessment hotline number. Alrighty, and that concludes our training for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We are here and available to help. Don't be afraid to give us a call. Kathy is also available for any assistance as well. Thank you very much and have a great day.